Coaching is not easy, and you will make mistakes. And it's interesting. David Blatt is a legendary head coach in Europe, and he came over and coached LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it didn't work. And it didn't work for a multitude of reasons. But one of the it got to a spiral point to where it didn't matter what he said. People weren't, it got met with like he was a complete idiot for anything he said. Right? And he said at one point in time, being an NBA coach, like being a fighter pilot, there's like 200 decisions you're making at any time. And of course, in Cleveland, I don't know if it's a Midwestern look or maybe it was a national. It was as if he said the dumbest thing of all time. And the truth is, it's incredibly accurate. And here's how it's incredibly accurate. Joel Embiid drives in, and it looks like he's driving to his left. It looks like he's going to spin back to his right hand instead of shooting, with his right hand going to his left. He's got Jason Tatum on him, so he's much bigger than Jason Tatum. Al Horford is, again, when Joel Embiid's driving to his left, Al Horford is to his left. And then behind him is, I don't know if it was Marcus Smart, who was guarding James Harden, and James Harden is open in what you would call the strong side corner, even though by the time Embiid gets to the middle of the court, there's no strong side or weak side. Just real quick, a little basketball geography, right? You guys know the strong side is the side with the ball on the floor. The midline is if you draw a line from one hoop to the other, that's called the midline. Okay, so if the ball is on one side of the midline, that's the strong side. The other side's the weak side. If the ball is at the midline, there is no strong side. There is no weak side. That's one of the reasons that if you go back historically in basketball, and you can see it now some with the Phoenix Suns, where if you're getting double teamed and a team is rotating well, put the ball at the midline, top of the key, or even at the free throw line, and there's no strong side, there's no weak side, so the rotations get screwed up. It's called centering the basketball. Put it right at the midline. There's no strong side, no weak side. Famously, UCLA's high post offense, run by John Wooden, the ball would get to the midline where they'd look high to low from the top of the key or high post to the low post to Bill Walton and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Why couldn't you stop it? Well, because there was no help side. If you're in the middle of the court, there's no help side. Meaning if Walton or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then Lou Alcindor caught the basketball, you couldn't immediately double team before you couldn't help. If you front them, you can't help because there's no help side. Anyway, Embiid's driving to the left, but got kind of to the midline. So there was really no pure help side. He spins back to what would be his right side, but over using his left shoulder, and throws it back to James Harden, who hits a three. That's when the Celtics take the ball in bounds and don't call timeout. Now, how many times in our life do we see a big basket like that in the NBA? They call a timeout, they advance the basketball, and then you run a play, right? That's most of our lives. And you can call a timeout and you don't have to advance the basketball. You can just take it out wherever you want. Instead, the Celtics opt to not take a timeout. They play it out. Jason Tatum drives to the left baseline, throws it to Marcus Smart. But before Marcus Smart can even get a shot up, the buzzer sounds. They took too long. So it brings us to the discussion about coaching, right? So here's how it works. The Boston Celtics are coached by a 34-year-old brand new head coach. His name is Joe Mazzulla. Joe played point guard at West Virginia. He was a D2 or D3 head coach for like a year. He's been on the staff. And because he doesn't call timeout, it's like, well, that's a mistake. Here is Joe Mazzulla after the game.
That was the play. We just had to play a little bit more pace. We had the right matchup. Jason got downhill, made the right play at the rim. We just had to play a little bit more pace there, but that was the play. We got Maxey in the pick and roll, and he made the right play. We just didn't play fast enough.
So there you go. Didn't play fast enough. You bring it up. There's a little confusion. He calls a play. Got to go. By the time they drive and they kick, it's just too late. It's a second too late. So, of course, you're 34 years old. You've never coached in the playoffs before. You're in the second round. People are going to say, you should have called a timeout and drawn up the play. But here's the problem when you call a timeout. Well, first thing is, yes, you get to set your offense. You know they get to set their defense, too. They can make defensive substitutions. Obviously, they wanted to go at Tyrese Maxey, rightfully so. Secondly, you also have to take the ball in bounds. So it's not just a play you're going to run. You have to sometimes run a play just to get it in bounds, or do you run a play to score? But there is a scenario where you don't ever get the ball in bounds, and it's their ball. But mostly, yes, you get to set up your offense. They get to set up their defense. And on that particular possession, the Sixers had their offensive lineup in. So if you have what you want against their defense, if you can engage Tyrese Maxey into switching onto a ball screen, or you think Jason Tatum is just better than Tyrese Maxey, why call a timeout? I completely agree with it. It's not because I'm a don't call a timeout guy. It all depends. Would you call a timeout? Would you not call a timeout? It depends. Who's on the court? How much time do I have left? How many points am I down? How much foul trouble are they in? Do they have an offensive lineup in? Do they have a defensive lineup in? Are we tired? Are they tired? Right? If I take it in, if I do call a timeout, how many do I have left after that? In case I don't get the ball in bounds. Do I want to take it in full court? Do I want to take it in half court? What do I want to do? Remember we started with saying David Blatt said it's like you're a fighter, you got like a fighter pilot? Same thing. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on that you don't know and we don't know anything about. That's not even listed in there. And at the end of the day, they had their best player, going downhill against the weakest defender for the Philadelphia 76ers. And because help came, they had a wide open shot on the weak side. It was just a half second too late. This is not me agreeing with always the philosophy. What you'll get is you get people go, well, I'm a don't call a timeout guy. Or I'm a call a timeout guy. Like Tom Izzo, and we'll talk a little bit later about Matt Ishbia, who was a former walk-on at Michigan State. Tom Izzo, he always calls the timeout. And I think too much so, but that's what he does. And they work on it, they drill it, and they practice it. Now, it allows the other team to set their defense, to set their lineup, and to know, hey, we've done a lot of studying. We know these are the plays that they like. This is where they want to run them. Let's stick to our rules, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or you can change up defensive coverage. You can do a million different things if a timeout's called. I'm not an all or nothing person. Are you an all or nothing person in life? I think that's my major pushback against politics these days. Like you got to be all or one thing or all another thing. Like, no, you don't. Why? You're allowed to have thought. I'd like my team to play it out. On the other hand, do I have my point guard in the game? Is this team good at running a play? My best player, does he know what I want him to do? Do we have a set play? Do we have time? Is it in front of our bench or is it going to the opposite bench? Is it loud? Are we tired? Are we in foul trouble? Are they in foul trouble? Do they have somebody they don't want in the game? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think what you heard from Joe Mazzulla was like, what's the point of calling timeout? I got what I wanted. It was just a half second too late. And they're going to have to learn from it. And sometimes it's the players, not the coaches. By the way, I thought Matt Ishbia, who's the owner of the Suns, he had a tweet out today basically saying don't suspend Jokic. Here's Charles Barkley on the Jokic-Ishbia incident.
I would guarantee that Joker did not know he was an owner.
Secondly, should have never grabbed the ball. No, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you, but I'm just saying you're asking why. I'm telling you why.
So. You agree, Kenny? I agree. He shouldn't have got a technical. If it was any other fan in the world, they wouldn't have given him a technical.
First of all, let me ask you a question, Ernie. If there had been a regular fan, he'd have got tossed.
The other guy got tossed.
I know it because he hit Joker.
He touched him. He didn't hit him.
Yeah, okay. But I'm saying, though, if another fan wouldn't let the ball go, he would have got tossed.
Would have got tossed.
Okay.
But you're not throwing me out of my building. I just think
exactly.
No way.
By the way, this is the
Welcome to the league. Hey, a lot of stuff come with that opinion, except the ball, though.
I loved it. I loved how those guys. Here's Jokic after the game talking about the incident.
The fan put a hand on me first, so I thought the league's supposed to protect us or whatever. So, but maybe I'm wrong. So we will see.
Did you happen to know who the fan was?
He's a fan, isn't he? If he's a sitting
Phoenix Suns owner,
sitting on the courts, and he's a fan, isn't he?
Yep.
That doesn't mean that he's a. So whoever it is, and he's a fan, he cannot influence the game by holding the ball. The fan put a hand on me first, so I thought the league's supposed to protect us or whatever. So, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'll just say this: there's two different incidents like that this weekend, right? People are talking about Tatum's push-off. If you go back and watch, I think it was Tyrese Maxey as well. Tyrese Maxey puts his hands on him first. That's a foul. So then, of course, and there's a push-off. He didn't actually extend the arm. I wouldn't have called a foul either, because then you have to call the first foul. It's the same thing here. Yes, Ishbia, did a little flop and sold it, but don't hold on to the basketball and don't get up close to an NBA player. That's not. I love Jokic saying, like, even though he knows clearly it's the owner of the Suns now, he's a fan. He's at the game. He's watching. He's cheering. He's a fan. He's a fan. I was waiting for him to say, if he dies, he dies. I know Ramos was waiting for that one. If he dies, he dies.